Hi, everybody. I'm Rand Hoppe, and I'm here with the Jack Kirby Museum, and we are here to talk about Jack Kirby's favorite stories for Comic-Con at Home. And I've got some special guests with me. Let me bring them up on the screen, and why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
Hi, this is Elana Levin. I am host of the Graphic Policy Radio Comics podcast, where comics and politics meet. I am a huge Kirby fan and the supporter of the Jack Kirby Museum, and I'm on Twitter as ELANA_Brooklyn.
I, on the other hand, am Adam McGovern, and I wrote comics such as the Kirby-esque Night World for Image, and write on Kirby for more years than I care to or am able to remember at the Kirby Collector. You can see other digits up on the screen, including my loosely defined comic company's Facebook page, and that's enough out of me.
And I'm Tom Kraft. I'm the president of the Jack Kirby Museum. Been doing research with the museum for many years. Headed the digital scanning part of the museum, and have been with the museum now for like 11 years.
And I am Rand Hoppe. I'm the director and founding trustee of the Kirby Museum, and I've been getting the word out about Jack Kirby via this small 501c3 nonprofit for 16 years or something like that, and it's just great to have everybody here. We're going to talk. So the idea for the show, and I'm going to push this button. Hello. So the idea for the show was that we pitched to Comic-Con was Jack Kirby's favorite stories. So the thing was that, you know, Jack was so approachable at the conventions that people would always ask him, "What's your favorite story?" And like any great creator, he would say the one I'm working on right now, because that feels right. But when he would get pushed, he would mention the Pact from the New Gods, and he'd get pushed a little further. He would mention a story called Mother Delilah from Boys Ranch that he did with Joe Simon. So we're gonna take a look at those two stories and talk about them, and just kind of get a sense of what it was and why are these stories so awesome, because that Jack would point to them as being his favorite stories. So let me provide some more world of context. So it's like 1950 or so. There's Boys Ranch. There's a few issues. Simon and Kirby were working with Harvey Comics. Joe Simon was friends with Alfred Harvey, and they published some things with them in the late 40s. Then they left, and then came back. And Boys Ranch was again, like, you know, kid gang, right? I mean, you know, that's like, it's Boy Commandos, Newsboy Legion, Boys Ranch. Well, there was even a Boy Explorers there for a little bit, but
Right.
And then in the third issue in December 1950, when it came out, there was a story called Mother Delilah. So I don't know. We've all read that story. I don't know whether I really want to just kind of like dive into like, let's look at comic pages, but unless you would like me to, what do you think about Mother Delilah, Elana?
I was going to say, like, I think it's fine to sort of scroll through pages and we can talk with it.
Okay.
But so this story was new to me because I'm not a big Western comics person, but I found it really touching. You know, you're kind of thrown in very classic, like, Kirby style. What's happening in this picture? It's in the middle of the story. Sort of she's got a bit of a look like a Marlene Dietrich feel from Mother Delilah, right? I think, like, he sort of sets up this framing device and kind of drops it a little bit, but he appears throughout of this poet who's looking at what's happening in this down and dirty saloon.
It's Virgil.
Yeah, no, he's literally Virgil, but he's a dreamer. But I think overall, I mean, the story is about how Angel, one of the boys from the boys' ranch, gets essentially seduced, but not in a sexual way, and then betrayed by Delilah, and the changes that the relationship makes in him and her. And it is a tragedy, as Samson and Delilah is wont to be, but it's all in this like Western milieu.
Yeah, I mean, I also really enjoyed the framing device, or the having Virgil kind of pop up and have be a character there, but like just the whole setup. I mean, the way that the Clay, Duncan, and the boys, how they deal with the town and deal with what's going on in the saloon. I mean, it's she runs, a pretty shady place, right? I mean, it's not like she's like a heart of gold. There's a heart of gold or anything going on, right?
Well, there isn't a heart of gold, but there's a broken heart of whatever material. And it's interesting that Virgil has the insight to, in one of his verses, talk about how she too is wounded. And the balance of compassion for both Angel, who's this murderous boy, and Delilah, who is this, manipulating and ulterior, grown woman, as two sides of the same coin, is somewhat ahead of its time, I think, and really circumvents some of the femme fatale, cliches that a story like this, and indeed a story like Samson and Delilah in the Bible, didn't avoid. So that I find really interesting, because it's like a shared compassion whereby Angel and Delilah are like this oasis for each other for a while, and they are in the midst of a completely unredemptive and unforgiving universe, which I think was, very much a Kirby perception, that we only have each other, to hold on to, kind of like Scott and Barda or others, in the fourth world. And it's what's strange to me is if there's a villain in this piece, it seems to me that it's Clay, because he's the one who's insisting on how this dream of them being mother and child can't exist, and it's only cruel of her to make anyone believe that it can.
Right.
Thank you. It's very, I don't know the character outside of this issue really, but he wants to take the boys to do the activities that he wants them to do. As much as they're supposed to be like free and they're like idealized youth run Peter Pan kind of boys ranch way. And I don't know why he's telling her, like, I guess it's maybe like he's internalized the idea of this is how the world works, and he's going to protect them from developing, like getting traumatized like he was. But it's actually really unfair, because I think that they could have had a nice familial relationship. And I also think he's like super into slut shaming her, basically. Like he doesn't want to have anything to do with her romantically, and he doesn't want her near the kids because she's dirty. It's sort of the subtext that I read from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, definitely there's the subtext of, going as far as you could in those days in a 1950s comic book aimed at kids at saying that she's a prostitute, just like you couldn't say it about Miss Kitty on Gunsmoke, though this was known, and contemporaneous Western TV show folks. And the other subtext I had to wonder about is whether Clay is gay, because, when he says, this can't happen, not with you, I mean, he's talking mostly about how, yeah, she's a slut, so she can't be a mother, but he's also saying that there can't be a family unit, which she hopes for with him, I guess, it seems to me. So I do wonder, if they're either trying to say that or succeeding in saying it, whether they're trying to or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's like there's like the sequence here on these 2 pages, which is where she kind of opens up to Clay, and it's like, I kind of like you, dude. Like, why don't you stick around? And he's just like, no, I have no time for you. And then this panel on the upper right,
Yeah, people laughing behind her back.
And that's it. Yes, it's like her. It's actually really looks great in the original art. The purple coloring. I mean, it's dramatic.
The color is great.
Yeah.
Like
Color
the
is
color
awesome.
in this page. I mean, like with the blue and the yellow and versus
Yeah.
her and the orange in the next one. Who's doing the colors on this? Do we know?
I think these are the new. This is the new colors. I kind of flipped through past it, but these are new colors from 1992. So it might be Greg Theakson. So it's just great. I mean, it really the dramatic element of like her being in charge, looking for reaching out, kind of getting soft towards Clay, and then him kind of just slapping her down, and then she's humiliated,
giving her a cold shoulder, and just
just kind of starts the whole sad tale in a way.
I guess also, I mean, I probably take back, I was grasping at any reason to feel sorry for Clay, to think that he's caught up, in these strictures of social expectation by being closeted. But actually, no, because I think what's going on here is Kirby, not first, but for one of many times, talking about how rejection of the feminine principle is not good news, is not going to end well. And so I think Clay just represents, hardened archetypal masculinity in like rejecting anything tender, in rejecting her motherly instincts. I mean, we see this in the Pact too, where Avia dies trying to tell Isaiah not to be violent, even though she is then killed by the guy that she's telling him not to be violent against. And it doesn't go well for him until he realizes, that he's like massacred half the universe, and he then embraces peace. And even though he calls himself High Father, becomes a much more maternal figure. I'm getting ahead of us into the next story, but
You are.
But they connect so well like that.
They do.
That's really
They do.
wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
I
wonder
think
if
the
the
other.
fact that-
Sorry.
Oh, I just was going to say, I wonder if, since there is a lot of similarities, I wonder how much he drew from this story to make the Pact.
Yeah. The other piece that really struck me in terms of like characters outside of the norms is Angel himself, whose whole thing is like, he's the Samson in the story, in the sense that he has the beautiful blonde hair that he doesn't let anyone cut. I'm assuming that they've established this about him in previous issues, so it's probably some part of the inspiration for this story being told is that, oh, we got to get this little blonde kid who refuses to get a haircut, then like that's a Samson and Delilah thing. But the scene where she cuts his hair, if you want to skip forward to that
Sure.
one, she's like they're having this relationship, but she's playing mom, and she's helping him read, and then she's like, I'm gonna give you a haircut, which like she's doing maliciously is the thing, which is a weird the way Angel freaks out about it and responds
Wow.
to it is so like Angel is like experiencing somebody not respecting his presentation of self and gender, how he wants to be seen. Like his image of how he's supposed to, how he looks most powerful is with long blonde hair. And when people tell him that is not correct and that he has to, like she is giving him a deliberately shoddy haircut, but just in general, the point is she cut his hair, is like, that's traumatic to him. And it was amazing to me to see the comic recognize that is traumatic and that he's not like a big baby for being freaked out about it. And that the people who are giving him shit for it are bullies and assholes, but that he's not like blowing a mountain out of molehill. Like this is real. And that's like pretty freaking insightful. If anybody's ever gone under the chair and come out looking wrong, or when you have that moment when you're like, oh my God, what happened to me? I got old. Or on even a more profound way, like when you're looking at how your gender presentation or how people perceive you in terms of your gender doesn't match with how you want to be seen by others. And you kind of have a touch of that in here. And I just was so like, at no point is Kirby like, this kid is wrong for freaking out. It's 100% like, these people are cruel, they're being bullies. And he really struggles until he starts to be able to feel like himself again.
Yeah.
I love this little kid.
He's great. I guess the one big setup for him, in the comic was that he was a dead shot, right? So that was his role, was that he's got that angelic appearance, but he's the best shot amongst the whole team there at the ranch. So that's part of the, when he runs out of here and he forgets his guns, it just all falls apart for him. Yeah, it all falls apart.
And I think that represents this line that Kirby was interested in traveling through most of his career, between what were the acceptable presentations of masculinity. I mean, certainly you see it with this, in the midst of the Eisenhower 50s, this long blonde-haired boy. You saw it with Thor, in kind of like the just pre-hippie era. He was always seeking, it seemed to me, like this reconciliation point between what were considered masculine and feminine presentations. And I sense that, I mean, my dad was a World War II vet, just like Kirby, and I sense that they had real struggles with, what they wanted to express as their, parental side and, the loving side, nurturing, and the violence that they've been called upon, to and acclaimed for doing in the war. So that, I think, Brand, that's something we're seeing too in the, I'm a deadly shot, but I also look like, I mean, hell, what's his name? I don't know why I'm blanking on the gangster, the owl hoot who tries to terrorize them all here.
Curly.
Curly.
The bully.
Yeah. At one point, he's almost trying to sexually harass, or at least intimidate Angel by saying, "Oh, aren't you the most, purdy, killer or whatever?" And tries to touch his hair and things. So, we see this weird lack of comfort going on, between these characters.
So then, I mean, we kind of end up where there's Curly just kind of decides to ambush everybody, right? So it's kind of the final scene. But we do see Angel is grabs some guns and gets kind of his his fantastic powers back. But then we end up at the saloon, and it doesn't end well. Is that?
It's an ambush.
Yeah, they Curly and sets up an ambush, and
and Delilah, warns them that they're about to get shot, and she flows herself in front of the children to try to protect them, and she gets killed. Yep. And it's really sad. Yeah. And I think it's interesting that Virgil, the poet / framing device, if you look out of the corner, you can see, he, even though he was a man of peace, a teetotaler who makes a big deal about that, when when children's lives are at stake, he draws out a gun and shoots the bullies too.
Yeah.
And it's sort of just a little offhand thing, and that is in the side of the picture rather than really a focus, which I think is a nice touch.
It is. Yeah. And
so that's really told completely in visuals.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's Mother Delilah. It's kind of heartbreaking, and it's kind of taking the. I don't know. I feel like I want to say that, Simon and Kirby worked on so many romance comics, but then they brought some of the heartbreak of that into westerns and made it so. Here's melodrama's melodrama. We can have it be, in the saloon in the Old West, or we can have it be in the suburbs of Roslyn, but they really had masterful, so worked on so many stories that they ended up really, becoming masters of this kind of work. And it is really one of the.
There's also this mastery of tragedy, because of course, looking at these particular pages, seeing, in the bottom right-hand corner of the left-hand page, Delilah, throwing herself in between the danger that Curly and his gang pose, and the Clay and the boys, it's even more of a echo of Avia, dying while Steppenwolf and Isaiah are battling. And overall, the story also puts me in mind of Himon, in Mr. Miracle 8, which I always thought of as basically a nightmare fairy tale, like a tragedy for kids. And so is this, and I'm not sure what genre to even call them, but in a way I consider this and that Mr. Miracle episode to be part of the same genre of, really no holds barred misery, with a redemptive insight, though certainly no respite for the characters.
Right. All right.
And this is also a story where, the grown men are acting like absolute like monsters and children. The children are having to take care of themselves, raise themselves to an extent. Like, I think what's his face? Our blonde protagonist hero man.
Clay Duncan.
Clay, thank you.
Nice.
He was like, he does not avail himself that well here in the slightest. And, and she's ultimately put to sacrifice herself. I mean, it's like a Western story that's centered on different characters than you would normally have in the genre. Right. And there's just a way more dialogue than you would. I mean, if you're watching like a lot of Western movies, there's a lot more talking in this short comic than you have in like The Searchers. I'm like,
right.
It's a very different sort of Western. And I'd be curious to see like what happens next with these particular characters. I love that Dandy's got his Northern Union hat on. Thank you very much. Right. I'm so tired of seeing the traitorous flag people valorized in these stories. But it's interesting, just like I think that this is like a moment where you would hope to see character development coming out of it in the next issue.
Right. I don't know. It's been so long, and it was I'm so laser focused on talking about the story. It's been a while. So yeah. They had I think there were five issues.
6 issues, and this is A, puts it right in the middle of the run, and B, the end of what people consider the most classic run. Like, Kirby had less to do with it and handed the art over to Mort Meskin for the other 3 issues and things like this. Right. So, I have to admit, I've read little of the rest, so I'm not sure how this is contextualized in forms of characterization. But Elana has made me think I gotta grab this book and learn.
Yeah, I only find it.
Yeah, I wanted to too.
I mean, one other thought about the art, though, is that there's a number of moments and faces in this where you just really start to see the Kirby style settle into what his faces would start to look like in the sort of classic Silver Age work. Sure. But you still have other touches that are a little bit more of his older style. Like, it really is catching him in the middle of the development of his style.
Yeah. It's that stringy, lithe body that he used in the 40s and 50s before everybody got really bulky.
Square in the best ways.
That's right. All right. Well, shall we move on into the fourth world and the Pact? Mm-hmm. All right. Sure. So.
I have to say, though, Elana saying "square in the best ways" makes me feel a whole new light on Forever People and the Harrys.
We went through the fourth world, man. I really enjoyed those Harrys. They
I love them.
Yeah.
Mm.
So just to provide a little context about like his, he did all that amazing work at Marvel, and changed superhero comics and so on, but he left and went back to National DC Comics, with Carmine Infantino, all kinds of stuff going on. Well, why did he work on Jimmy Olsen? We're not going to get into that, but
Thank God.
yeah, no,
He's a mensch. He did it because he's a mensch.
that's right. Yep. But I just wanted to provide some context that, like, here's, Jimmy Olsen, his first issue of Jimmy Olsen, August 1970, and just based on what I could fit on the screen, here's 9 months, 10 comics, right? Then April 71, 5 months, 10 comics. Like, lots and lots of comics. I'm always fascinated by looking at what his workload was and how many stories he told in such a short period of time. And if you were there and you were reading these things, and then, oh, look, it's even more. 17 months, 31 comics. It's a lot of stories.
How many characters, though?
So many
Incredible
characters,
number of characters.
concepts, ideas,
Yeah.
drama, fights, all kinds of stuff. But it took up until this point before you really got a sense of what's going on. Like, what is this story that he's trying to tell? When he brought New Gods #7, and he even says, from time to time, this kind of segment will supplement the larger tapestry of the New Gods. The clouds open and the angels sing, and it's a great mythological, heartbreaking story.
It's almost like reading the Bible, Well, I mean,
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth.
Yes.
It separated light from darkness. I mean,
Light and dark, but light and darkness is the two worlds.
and didn't New Gods 1 start with like epilogue?
It did.
Yeah. So it's cool, and we've got this great Mike Royer art, where doves and flowers. I don't know. I don't want to talk anymore. Somebody else needs to talk.
Well, I think you've hit upon something, Rand, with this first page, and that is, it does kind of cause me to pause and praise again just the typographic genius of Mike Royer. The way that you have this strange, eccentric but kind of like scratched on parchment font for the in the beginning, almost looking a bit like, more like mid-century Judaic design, and also even touches like the way that the caption is an open border, of the page, which I don't know if Royer innovated that, but it certainly isn't common for the time, and it's the first time I remember seeing it.
Well, it was something that Mike did a lot with panels in order to what he would call posterize them, to take the panel borders away. I'm pretty sure when we looked at this, the pencils that Jack had panel borders, and
he did.
Mike was like,
no,
we're gonna do it this way. Yeah.
He also had now that you mentioned it, he also, I'm pretty sure, I know that if not here, in many similar instances, he probably had a panel border around this whole page, and where it just opens up, where there's a white sky, that was all Royer, or I should say that was none Royer, because he knew to eliminate it.
negative space Royer,
yeah.
But all right. And now it's the attack.
Yeah, so he's a warrior, right? He was fighting, and he finally relaxes with his wife, and this happens.
And they're attacked by Steppenwolf from the enemy Apocalypse.
Oh, good. I was afraid you were going to say Steppenwolf from Zack Snyder's Justice League.
No.
Steppenwolf, the band. They were attacked
Right.
by the inventors of the word heavy metal. What I love about this piece is, I mean, one, calling him Isaiah is like to the prophet Isaiah. It's such an interesting and significant choice in naming him here, because he really is like the figure who establishes the new future of how the New God Society will be structured as we see it at the start of the comic. But I do also want to point out with like Avia, his wife, flying in to try to keep him from getting shot. Like, and yeah, like I love that what you brought up, Adam. In both cases, you know, where Delilah gets in between the bullets and the children, or in this case, she's trying to stop Steppenwolf. But it's like she's trying to stop the violence. So she's in the splash page, which I really love, where she's saying like, I've never heard you sing. It's not that she's saying like you shouldn't fight. She's saying like this can't be the only thing that we do. And you know, she's brave. She's totally ready to risk herself and she gets killed. You know. But I love this Steppenwolf's jaunty hat. It's just really one of the great jaunty hats.
It is jaunty.
And his little hunter's cloak, like you're just going to have him be a very dramatic hunter.
Yep, that's right. Yep. And so we have Darkseid. Darkseid zaps him with the magic glove.
I just love how this story is just like all the scheming of Darkseid and how he's orchestrated all these different factors in order to meet his objectives.
And it's
a great story.
And you know, we've seen him, we've seen him in Happy Land, right? At this point, I think those comics.
You're right.
We know Darkseid.
Forever people.
Yeah.
We know Darkseid,
right?
Seen, so, but for me, this is like reading it today. I mean, how many times have I read this? Quite a lot. But reading it today, it's like I had like a new take on one particular piece in it. That it was really cool. I really enjoyed it. So it stands rereading.
Oh, definitely, because you have these deeper layers. It didn't occur to me till you just said that, but seeing the younger, more scheming and weirdly subtle Darkseid, it's like going back and learning, for instance, how put upon Charles was in like season 3 of The Crown kind of thing. It's like, you see, okay, there's other dimensions to these characters. Darkseid is still as objectionable as I feel Charles is, but you get another dimension, another perspective.
They're in their hungry period where they're still trying to weasel. Like this story is so good as a way that shows you the subtle ways that Darkseid accumulates power, and that his manipulative form of power is actually more powerful than just Steppenwolf just coming in and blowing up a few guys.
Right.
And how he's working the angles. It's such an interesting and new kind of supervillain. I mean, there's Dr. Doom in him, and Dr. Doom has many of these qualities too. But with Darkseid, it's like the whole shtick is about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how he manipulates Steppenwolf and the whole situation is just pretty cool.
The splash page.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's
I love the titling again, The Pact. It's just awesome.
Yeah. And it's just chock full of that energy and destruction.
And yet, even though it has that destruction, it has a disclaimer of sorts, right up in the upper left caption when it says, "But far from being a chronicle of the conflict, this is instead the story of personal struggles and the strange forming of the Pact." So you get this good signal of what Kirby was really after, which are those layers, as well as the really awesome surface of annihilation.
Yes.
And the parademons really are like angels in that, armored angels.
Yeah.
That's so scary, right?
Yeah.
I love Hagara so much. Oh my God.
It's just great. She is a star of this story, that's for sure.
She, I mean, her name definitely is like evoking like Hera, right?
Mm-hmm.
The queen of the Greek gods, and I love her little hair / horns situation.
Right.
It's a wonderful design, and he just, one of the several like really just totally powerful and scary old women of Apocalypse, basically, and just judging everybody and telling them how much better her son is than
Right. Darkseid's delightful.
Than her brother, and
Yeah.
I love that this is
I'd love to
Metron's
have
first
seen
appearance.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No,
I don't think it's his first
I love that.
appearance.
Yeah.
He was in.
We see him before
5.
this? Okay.
Oh, we have, but it's still very well taken what you say, Elana. I think because it is his earliest appearance, so to speak.
This is true.
Because
Continuity was sure. Yeah. Young Metron without his chair.
And it gives you some kind of perspective in who he's about. Doesn't take sides. He's only interested in science and power.
A kind of nervous tech geek.
Yeah. No, he's totally like the scientists who are like, I'm going to make rockets for anybody. Could be Nazis, could be the Americans.
Right.
I just want to make some rockets.
I
Surely
like
this is a good idea.
Yeah. So.
But yeah. Sorry.
No, I'm just one of the things that I noticed here on this bottom right panel on the right page was this actually, I think Darkseid's smiling.
He is smiling.
I think he is.
I love it.
I think it's the only time we see him smile.
I think I've ever seen that before.
Yeah.
I'm your servant, lady. She's laughing and he's just like, oh, Mom, I'm your servant, It's great. It's just great.
I know that's one of the single scariest images in the whole series, and it's meant to be jocular. Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, he laughs at the end on Mr. Miracle number 18 at the wedding, the very last panel.
That's true. It's very disconcerting, as he says.
Yes, whenever he laughs.
So this is like the one it's a technology thing, right? The blah blah blah, the whatever, the X element, right?
Element.
Yeah.
Don't call it a cosmic cube.
No.
Or the Philosopher's Stone.
And the boom tube hasn't happened yet, right? So technologically, I believe that X element is a precursor to the well-known boom tubes of the fourth
and I
world.
believe also his chair.
Right. Yeah, he doesn't have his chair yet.
That's what he wants it for. No, and I like that they're going to show you like this is the technology, and it actually was used and it was powerful in these ways, but this is what it cost to create it.
Yeah.
And also, there's an elegance to the boom tube, and it's literally more technophilic. It's a tube. It's like what the doctor would use, to diagnose something. Whereas this matter threshold, as they call it, is like this rip in reality, which is very good for conveying the brutality of this period of the new god's life.
Yeah.
And those the dragon tanks. What a design!
Yeah.
Amazing. Right. It's so awe-inspiring. It even makes me forget about the Trojan chicken or rabbit in Monty Python.
That's right.
This is a great splash. My God, all the technology with the arm.
Yeah. I remember they animated that in that Superman, the Bruce Timm, Paul Dini Superman Apocalypse. They had that guy, with the Darkseid appearance. Kind of fun to see.
Yeah, and that image, it makes me reflect on how many novel iconographic types Kirby would come up with just with a flash of his pen. This pose is, I've seen emulated time and again in comics since, just like, say, the subterranean monster reaching for the Fantastic Four on the cover of their first issue. He just did all these things that beg to be homaged, like, you know, Michelangelo's David or something. It's really remarkable. And, you know, you never see this guy again, whoever he is.
Right. Yeah. It's just iconographic, right? I mean, it's just,
but it's just, all Isaiah the Inheritor masked for his masked return.
That's right.
And
that's right. Steppenwolf thought he killed him.
Yep.
Or Darkseid gave him the mitten of death. Right?
No, but it was all orchestrated, planned out.
Orchestrated. That's right.
Yep. He didn't mean to kill Steppenwolf.
No.
If he wanted him to be, you know, alive, or I mean Isaac, he didn't kill Isaac.
Right.
Because he wanted to get as a part of the war built up. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So I mean, this whole thing is about the strategy that Darkseid uses to create, you know, a hot war and then a cold war with the hope of returning to a hot war again. Like, I think the story is just really preoccupied with the question of, when does a hot war become a cold war? When does a cold war become a hot war? And like, what is more dangerous?
And the thing that I came out of it with was that the hot war is Steppenwolf's war, not Darkseid's war. And the whole thing was the way to, if Steppenwolf was going to stay, and he'd, you know, it'd be like, you know, everything would just explode and everybody'd be dead. But then Darkseid was like, no, there's something else. You know, I want to control everybody's free will or whatever. But, you know, it's not the level of death and destruction. And
the Cold War, using that to control people's free will, is like such a straightforward metaphor for the actual world and times they were living in.
That's right.
Like Nixon.
Yeah.
And it's such an amazing setup here.
It's
and I love this profile of, sorry.
No, I was just saying, it's like okay, you know, let's like put the war machine in the fields across Europe, and, you know, have, you know, all those people go through the meat grinder, and then we have the Cold War. I mean, like, as you described, you know, like it was like détente and mutually assured destruction and all that shenanigans, right? Where, like, it's just interesting. Sorry.
And I just love the Metron looking at, like, Metron looking 3/4 view over here.
Yeah.
Beautiful inking on his face there too.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, the coldness of Darkseid's war and his form of strategy in a few pages beyond is, you know, is so like icily and creepily expressed just by Hegra's off-camera death, you know, the way that he just makes passing reference as if it was almost nothing about, oh, she has unfortunately been claimed by this war, you know.
Yeah.
You really wonder what, you know, what
really happened.
Yeah.
Good point. And I love Isaiah's crisis of self. Sorry.
Yeah. No. Yeah. This is
like straight from the Torah. Like, this is, you know, there's a number of instances that we have of people going into the desert and having this crisis of, who am I? What role am I supposed to take? And calling out to God and having a vision and having a mode of transformation, coming from a warrior to a man of peace. And this is all just like straight. I mean, the Pact is just like full Moses. It's just kind of backwards, because you have him going and talking to the burning bush in the beginning of the story to get the message from him. But you know, he's and I'm glad, because we were all asking from the beginning of the series, why is he Isaiah the Inheritor? Like, what is the inheritor of? And I think in the story we're like, well, I guess he's like the inheritor of being in charge of things. I guess would be the best guess one would have. Like, he's the inheritor of the role of leader, but he's asking, like, what is it that he actually wants to have? And I love him ripping off his shirt and having his staff and straight up being hardcore Moses. I mean, like, that's the most hardcore Moses panel. Until the next page, flip over, where he's like going to have a conversation with the burning bush, aka the source. And I think it's important. I don't want to make the assumption that people understand Jews don't draw God. Like, that's not a thing. I mean, we can draw Zeus in a picture of like Zeus or whatever, but like, we don't draw like God. So like, what do you have is you have the word, you have an image of something that might not actually be able to be looked at. So the source is this amazing solution to, like, these might be the new gods, but they're God in the way that like Zeus or whatever is. They're not like actually God. And like the source is him having this moment of contact with like actual God, if that makes sense. At least that's how I interpret it. And that's why it's a wall. That's why it has writing on it, and it's the source of life. And additionally, when you have the hand writing the word the source, the pointer device, and I'm forgetting what it's called, and all my rabbis are going to be like, "What's wrong with you?" But you're not allowed to touch the Torah when you're actually reading from the Torah. You have a pointer that has a hand pointer, a little hand-shaped pointer that you use to touch it when you're reading along. This is not like a book you read at home, but when you're reading the Torah at the Beemont Synagogue. So there's just like tons of Jewish stuff happening in this. And then that's not even before you switch babies. Switching babies is hell of Moses too. Sorry. Anyway, having a lot of feelings.
But I love the fact that the hand is writing, and that it is the unifriend as well. I mean, it's really like it's if you want to be like hard-hearted, you can mock that, but like, you know, I think that's really great. You know,
does he ever explain what the friend is other than here? I don't think I ever see that again.
No.
Well, it's like the Unimind in the Eternals. Like I think that he's like the Uni da.
Yeah.
But,
and then we're back to the plot.
I just wanted to mention one thing in the page before.
Sure.
When Isaiah is just like troubled, his eyes turn white if you go back one spread.
Sure.
And Jack always used that, like the second panel, to show somebody dead inside or somebody dead. It's just interesting that he chose, like, you could tell that his language is like he's dead, and then he puts his hands over his eyes, and then he knows what he needs to do.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
So I guess that means if Jack was drawing Batman, Batman is dead inside.
Yes. Right?
Oh, right. Now we're introduced to Darkseid's wife, or his baby mama.
Tigra.
It's great.
Tiger.
Yeah.
Is she the Tiger Force in the heart of all things?
It never occurred to me, though. I do, whenever I read this scene, I wonder, why does he imprison her and not just kill her? So maybe she is another side of his coin. He's the Tiger Force and she's the Tigra Force, because he does seem to have a certain fixation with not removing the people who could be his undoing, including the forever people. I've always found it notable. I've always found it notable that of the four titles, the one where Darkseid has by far the most screen time is Forever People.
Yes.
And he has these direct confrontations with them where he's trying to like figure them out and like open up what their secrets are, which I always kind of liken to that bizarre real life incident where like one night, like after midnight, Nixon went down to the Lincoln Memorial to like,
oh my God,
a bunch of peace protesters, like, what was this about? And
trying
to get into their heads. So there's something about Darkseid. In a weird way, he's like Metron, because there's things he's trying to understand, though he's trying to understand it so he can have closure, whereas Metron's trying to understand things so he can get more questions, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the baby.
And in case anybody doesn't know, this is where they trade children.
Yes. It's the baby swap or child swap. Yeah.
Worst reality show ever. No.
Right? But that's the plan for peace. And
Darkseid just sees it as like a way to stop the war, because he realizes that it's not going to end well. It's just going to keep on going. So this gives him a reframe so he could plot out his next, plans.
Otherwise, everything would just get destroyed. So and I'm entertained by how little Scott Free's glove here looks like Sandman to me.
Oh, it is
like something from
What was that? Was reminding me of?
It's just Jack and his patterns.
I love his patterns.
His patterns are amazing. Yeah. So,
But in
when I-
boyhood, Orion has the same color scheme, which I only just noticed too after like 50
Yeah.
years.
Oh, that's interesting. They're dressed the same way.
yeah, yellow and red. Yeah.
what is so important with this, like I really think that the Orion and Scott-free baby swap, like in addition to being, this plot point and also having, it's like Moses, he's raised by the enemies, not knowing who his true parents are, and then when he realizes who they are, he's going to fight for the freedom of his people. Scott and Orion. But what's also just, I think it's one of the most important things about the Pact is that you have this, and this is just generally about this is about the fourth world in general. You have this child of these wonderful, enlightened beings sent to be raised by these tyrants and these abusers, and you have the child of these monsters being sent to be risen by an enlightened person, enlightened space. And Jack is asking, is good or evil, is that inborn? Is it genetic? Is it nurture? Is it nature? And Jack's answer is, good people can come from either place. And that if you're someone who's coming from trauma, the way, it'll shape you in one way. And if you're someone who maybe has some genetics, the way Orion does, it might be a struggle for you in other ways, but you can still fight to be a good person.
Right.
And that is one of the reasons why I hate whenever anybody makes Orion an evil dictator or tyrant, is because that's kind of like saying that good or evil is completely inborn,
Right.
and that you're born bad, and if your parents are evil, you're going to be evil, which is like eugenics and terrible, like a terrible thing to say.
Right.
And what I think is great with here is like Orion is still a moody asshole, but he's a moody asshole for the good guys who's trying to do what's right. He struggles to try to keep his temper in check. So it's sort of acknowledging that like the genetic inheritance, you might have inherited your parents' mental illness, but that doesn't mean you're evil. Like, and so that's one of the reasons why Orion is so important to me.
Yeah.
And I love that our first panels we have of him, he's this like very angry little kid who's not just like, can you go to the next one?
Sure.
I'm sorry. He's like ready to stab, and he's like, everyone hates me. So it's not that he's like inherently violent. It's that he thinks everyone hates him. He's constantly abandoned. He's constantly not told what's happening in his life. And like, this is just pure, like accurate depiction of child abandonment and trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And Highfather reaches out his hand to say, like, it's not saying, call me dad. He's like, I could be this for you if you choose this. And this whole sequence is so powerful.
It really is.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Make the
And
choice.
now,
yeah.
And of course he looks like Moses, and so we got lots of Moseses. So he's Moses dad, Moses babies, lots of Moseses.
Right.
But I mean, but him just saying, you won't speak to me, you never speak, you hate me, like that's him processing like that. This is what's happened to him with his other parents. He's like venting this to the new space. He doesn't know how anybody else could treat him, and it's just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And he gives him a chance to put down the stabbing ice pick and pick up his hand for peace.
Yeah, the secret ice pick. Yeah.
And that's another example of the way that the hand is a character in so much Kirby work. And definitely here, we had the pointing hand before. We have this dialogue basically all between their two hands by the end, the one with the weapon and the one extended in peace.
Yeah.
It's just so brilliant. And of course, the hand was Kirby's peaceful weapon. It's the one that he drew with and tried to create something better than the things he had to do when he was in a gang himself as a kid and when he was in the war.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that was really great. I don't know what else to say. But
it's just the best comic.
Yeah, it's a great comic. It sure is. Yep.
Amazing mythologically, and it really struck me how by the Reagan era, I'm not sure how early this idea was, but it really started to gain steam. There was whole groups who were positing that the Soviet Union and America should swap some children to like live in each other's embassies or something,
Oh, wow.
as a way to, stop either side from, having it not end the ultimate unwell. I don't think that ever happened, but I thought back to the Pact and thought, wow, I mean, it's not as terrible circumstances. These were supposed to be kids who would, start to appreciate the quote enemy culture of each other's, of each other's people. But
that was one of the big projects of the State Department. Has always been the organized overseas student exchanges. And I don't think they've ever been like, this is so y'all don't kill each other, but it definitely that's part of their vision of how to impact the U.S. relationships with other countries without war.
Right.
Yeah,
it's just get to know each other, get to actually know each other. And I love what you said, Elana, about how these characters could go either way, and it's not written by a big hand on a blank slate. It's it can be rewritten by how people treat each other. Yeah.
It also reminds me of Big Barda, her struggles, because she was born under Darkseid and had to adjust to that. And sometimes
everything she knows about I mean, she has it the hardest because she has no role models or parental, infantile influence or anything to push her towards fighting for freedom and justice, etc.
Right.
Yeah, that she was always the most powerful symbol of that for me, because it's not like Orion, who has this quote dual nature, and one the right side might win out. It's not like Forager, who is implied we're supposed to root for because he's not really a bug. He just accidentally ended up in their midst. But yeah, Barda has to rely just on her own strength of character, and one of many reasons she's one of my all-time favorites.
Mine too.
Oh man, awesome.
I mean, I also have Orion, but he's pretty small back there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. There's Jack's two favorite stories. I think it makes a lot of sense that those were his two favorite stories.
Adam, thank you for helping to pull together some of the similarities between what they're telling. I think that's really revealing.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. No, I always learn more when I hear you discourse on these two.
No, you guys are great. I'm so glad you joined us, and it's always thought provoking and entertaining, and just I feel like we're amongst unifriends. That's all.
Aww.
Yeah. So I'm gonna do a little wrap it up moment here. But thanks again, and just sit tight, and maybe we'll say a final farewell after I just kind of say hey folks, become a member of the Jack Kirby Museum. Your ongoing support helps us pay the bills. Visit jackkirbymuseum.org. We are a small 501c3 nonprofit, and your support really helps. We have bills, right, Tom?
Many bills.
Yes, and we welcome your support. We can become a member, help us out. We have a gift shop. We are selling things. We have amazing posters, T-shirts. We have a nice pin. You should see this Captain Victory poster we were able to do. It's really, really cool.
Ooh, I haven't seen that yet.
No, it's really good. So check out our gift shop. And
get all the T-shirts that we all wore today.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, I didn't wear a T-shirt today, but yeah. You Adam and Tom are T-shirt pals. But all right, guys, thank you so much. Thanks to Comic-Con at home for giving us this opportunity, and reach out to us. Let us know what you think, and we'll see you at the conventions. In real life, we'll see you online. We do a lot of live streams and virtual stuff. So stay tuned, and thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.